What's up, guys? We are back. Another week, another pod. Uh, had a good time once again. Some great March Madness games we will be going over, as long as a special draft at the end this time. Joined as always by my lovely co-host Aiden. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I enjoyed some of the games. Had a nice little Easter, not really break, but time to see family and stuff, which was good. And I'm ready to get back at it. Attack this podcast and hopefully do a better job with this than we did at picking our brackets or second chance brackets because neither did too well. Um, yeah, I guess we can just jump right into the game that sticks out to me, which was my champion losing in our second chance bracket champion, I believe, losing being UNC. Um, I had thought for a little bit about as you worded it, Nick, when we talked about it, the inverse emotional game impact regarding UNC Arizona, but I really thought the talent would be good enough to overcome it. And it seems like the two players most directly involved in the UNC Arizona ones were the ones that may have suffered from it, being RJ Davis and Caleb Love, as they both very much struggled in this game. Um, I watched a good amount of this game. I watched a decent amount. I was driving also while it was happening, so not all of it. But from what I saw, it was funny. Cormac, I always harp on Cormac, and I actually thought he didn't play that well, and then I looked at the numbers, and he was 5 for 8 shooting. And, like, that's good. I just thought he was a little hesitant on some of his threes. Um, and then RJ Davis in the second half was getting to the line at least, but I don't know. Bama's run and gun style just got them, and there were points in that game where Bama just couldn't miss, and it just seemed like it was inevitable.
Yeah. The thing that stood out to me most from that game, and I know you remember this part of the singular play that I'm going to talk about, was tie game, minute left, and then Cam Withers, the
Oh my
backup
god.
center, takes a 3-point shot, and it wasn't even like low in the shot clock. I don't think it was like it was
It was
so. I
20
was
seconds.
I was
20
absolutely
seconds.
dumbfounded. Like there was just no way in hell that like Hubert Davis would have wanted that shot. Like I don't know any reasoning behind that. It was so stupid. Um, yeah, I like that. That really stood out to me because like obviously UNC did have like a 9-10 point lead for I think a fair amount of the game, and then they kind of blew it at the end. But they definitely had a chance there to score, take the lead with a minute left, and that was not the shot you want. I think a thing I noticed like multiple times throughout the year for UNC that was their downfall is they don't have a ton of people that are really like able to shoot. Like you have RJ, Cormac, and Harrison Ingram, and outside of those three, like no one else on the team can shoot. Cadeau cannot shoot. Trimble can't shoot. Obviously, Baycott and Withers no jump shot. So it's like RJ Davis went I think 0 for 9 from three, same as Caleb
Yep.
Love. I saw a lot of that. But when RJ isn't having a good day, there's now that you're down to two shooters on the whole team, that just makes it so much easier for a team to play defense on you. Um, so that was what I noticed. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think in the current game with where we are, you can't have your point guard simply be a non-threat from the three-point line. I mean, they were absolutely just letting him shoot the entire time, and he was making a good decision by not shooting. And then, in late game scenario, they didn't have him out there, but I just think he's got to develop a jumper if UConn, or not UConn, UNC wants to compete in the future because he's a true freshman, I believe. So he's going to be the guy for them going forward.
yeah, he kind of reminds me of Maxi, but like without the jumper. Um, Super quick. He's the fastest guy on the court all the time. But you like Maxi obviously has a great jumper. He shoots like 40 from three. Uh, so that's something that Cadeau definitely needs to add if he wants to be a threat, even at the college level, but certainly at the pro level.
Yeah. Let's see. I guess moving on, we can probably jump to the Clemson Arizona game because it's that region. I honestly didn't catch much of this because this was in the bulk of my drive. Gerard had a good game in the what was it in the Elite Eight, but he was decent in this game. I think that Arizona and obviously Caleb Love suffered from some of the looking forward to the next game effect, and then I just think that um, the bodies in the paint. I thought Shefflin played pretty well, and Hall were good, and then you have I feel like the Clemson team was so well balanced where you had a shooter like Gerard paired with two pretty good interior bigs, and you combine that with a guy like Hunter, who honestly I don't really like. I didn't really like that much. I didn't really think he was good, but he had a pretty good tournament overall. Who can get to the hoop and create some of that penetration to give you all aspects of the game. I think it just ended up being too much for them. But like I said, I unfortunately didn't watch a ton of this game, so I'd let Nick do more of the talking for this one.
Yeah. Um, Man, if UNC had won, ACC really did us proud. Uh, Unfortunately, UNC lost, which sold it a little bit, but still, I mean, great for the ACC. Clemson, yeah, Shefflin definitely had a very good game. PJ Hall, I mean, he's good, but the downside, as we saw in the Elite Eight game against Bama, is his foul trouble. They said some ridiculous stat that he's fouled out like 10 times this year, which I feel like is a lot in a 30 game season or whatever. Um, but yeah, uh, I'm trying to think. I remember more of the Clemson Bama game, which we can talk about in a sec. But for the Clemson Arizona game, yeah, it seemed like on Arizona, like no one could really get going, including Caleb Love. Like Clemson was ahead, I think, like basically the entire game. They jumped out early, stayed ahead. Zona was always just like 5, 6, 7 points behind. Um, it just seemed like they couldn't really get going offensively. I remember that game was really slow to start. Like it took a long time for either team to make like multiple baskets in a row. Um, yeah, I said at the beginning of the tournament that Zona lives by the Caleb Love and dies by the Caleb Love, and they died by the 0 for 9 Caleb Love.
Indeed, they did. I don't know do you want to jump into Clemson, Bama, or do you want to
Yeah, we
jump
can we can go
around?
region by region.
Okay.
That's cool with me.
Well, for this game, obviously this was the one that I was referring to rather, where Gerard played pretty well, but I this see because we had the two games in between pods, I get them sort of mixed up. But this was a game where like Bama just absolutely couldn't miss from three in the clutch moments. Like I remember a specific run where I believe it was Gerard goes down, hits a three to cut the lead to three. Bama goes down, hits a three to get it back to six. Gerard goes down, hits another three, cut it to three, or someone on Clemson did. Bama cuts it back to six. Clemson misses. Bama hits a three to cut it to nine, and it's like in that stretch. And then Clemson came down the court and hit a three. So in a four possession stretch, Clemson hit three threes and ended up right square where they were, I believe. So um, I don't know. I feel like a lot of what I think Bryce Harper might have just hit his third home run. Sorry. I think a lot of what happened for Clemson was in their tourney success. They sort of controlled the flow of the game. And I feel as if in this game that wasn't really the case. And that's sort of what Bama can do when they speed you up. But you did bring up a good point. I think I gave Hall too much credit in the talking about the Sweet 16 game. He was in foul trouble a lot this tournament, like pretty much all of the tournament. And some of them were absolutely dumb fouls. I remember one where the guy gets by him baseline and he just rips his hand down into the guy's arm like that isn't going to get called. And that was when he already had three fouls, I think. So it's just for a guy that plays with so much energy and effort, I feel he just lacked a lot of basketball IQ in terms of the tournament and specifically regarding his fouling.
Yeah. My takeaway from that game was Mark Sears. That's my whole point. No, actually, the Bama center, I think his name is Nick Pringle. Uh, he had hit a ton of free throws. Props to him. For centers, it's not that easy, especially a guy like him. He doesn't have a jumper. but he took like 15 free throws in the game and he sunk like 10 of them, I think. Um, he played really well. He was rolling, getting a ton of offensive rebounds. I think he was the game changer. And then Sears started off like 0 for 6 from three and then hit his next six. That was the run you're talking about. It was literally just Sears alternating with Clemson between, it was mostly Gerard, but I think PJ Hall hit him too. Um, the guy just couldn't miss in the second half. It was absolutely insane. Grant Nelson didn't play that good after his amazing game against UNC. But yeah, Gerard was hot, Sears was hotter, and I think Clemson just didn't really have the personnel to guard Bama like you have to.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They built themselves through the transfer portal and through a lot of age to be the type of team that can get go deep in the tournament, and they did achieve their goal. They went deep in the tournament. But I just think, like you said, they got to the point where the talent just wasn't really there to take you all the way when you include some of the things they did have, such as age and a really well gelled together, I thought, team, as I mentioned earlier.
Move to the East region and top left.
Yeah. Okay, so
Uh,
for UConn SDSU, I'm gonna be honest. Watched bits and pieces, but I always thought UConn was just better than SDSU, and that kind of gave me this preconceived notion of how the game was gonna go. And it appears the game went about as that notion went, where UConn just had more talent and executed better than SDSU did and got the job done. So that's pretty much all I have to say on that game.
Yeah, I actually watched zero of this game. I think there was a game running simultaneously. Maybe it was the Illinois Iowa State game,
Yeah,
which was a much better game. But I said on last week's pod that I would hammer UConn minus 11 against San Diego State. It's no sweat. I will say, however, I also would have told you to that I liked Illinois against the spread against UConn. That did not turn out well. We can talk about that in a sec. But wow, UConn, unbelievable, unreal. They're oh my god, their basketball is just so insane. Um, but looking at the Iowa State game, uh, Terrence Shannon, if you take out the UConn game, uh, has been the best player in college basketball in the past month. Just absolutely insane. I think in the month of March he was averaging 28 a game. Um, Absolutely ridiculous. He's a baller, and I think that was the difference. Domask was also really good. Um, yeah, those two just carried them. And Iowa State, I mean, we've talked. We don't like Iowa State. Yeah, I
no,
mean, I just thought Illinois, the stud Terrence Shannon, would just overpower them, and he kind of did. But it was a good game.
yeah. Terrence Shannon, very good at the game of basketball. Iowa State, not very good at doing stuff outside of flailing at the hoop. Obviously, I somehow, despite not having any personal connection, seem to have bias against Iowa State. So that's just kind of what I see with them. But I don't know. Shannon was good. Iowa State's offense performed better than I expected it to, but part of that was Illinois' defense isn't really crazy good or anything like that. I just think at the end of the day, the best player on the court got it done, and that was Terrence Shannon Jr. in this one. And like you said, really starting, I don't know, pre Big Ten tournament, but in the Big Ten tournament, he just became, one of the best players in college basketball, arguably above what Edey was doing, which we'll get to later, as he had some fantastic games, and arguably above what Connect was doing, who were pretty much the 1-2 for most of the back half of the season. So I was really impressed with what I saw from him. And he is old, but I kind of feel like in this draft, barring some of the off the court stuff, because that still is yet to sort itself out, just strictly talking his on court game, he may be a guy that potentially gets a look earlier than people expect. Um, in a year where it doesn't seem like there's a lot of guys out there in the draft that you're going to get that are going to be your stars or even your significant contributors. So,
Yeah. I have to say I was a little surprised when I was looking at the most recent Bleacher Report mock draft. Both Terrence Shannon and Connect are like late lottery picks, which I guess that does speak to the this is a weaker draft, but also maybe part of the Jaime Jaquez effect, where these guys can come in and make a real impact day one. I think Shannon and Connect obviously can play at the higher level. They're both good 3-point shooters, elite scorers in college, and it should translate to the NBA. Both of them, especially Connect, have defensive concerns, but I mean, both of them are amazing scorers and could definitely make an impact on an NBA roster day one. Um, and then if we want to move to the Elite Eight game, there's not much to talk about in the UConn Illinois besides 30-0 run. Like I was watching that, just absolutely shook. Like it looked pretty competitive in the first half. It looked like a very good game. UConn jumped out early, but Illinois brought it back. Terrence Shannon was not playing well, but it was a close game. And then UConn just opened up a can of whoop ass on them. Flingen was unstoppable. UConn or Illinois, someone needed to tell Coleman Hawkins to stop shooting the ball. It was so horrific. I don't know why he's taking step back threes. Um, it was so painful to watch as a guy who really liked this Illinois team. Um, but UConn just obliterated them. It, yeah,
UConn, they beat you to a pulp with sound defense and an array of different sets that they use on the offensive end. Where it seems that what happens is they'll jump out early, the other team will settle into the game, and then they'll just keep punching them in the mouth until they're there. This one was funny. My dad had said, I'm gonna go on a walk real quick or get something from the car or something, and that was when the 30-0 run happened. So he comes back and I'm like, yeah, no, we switched it to the other game. It's over. And he was like, what? What are you talking about? Like it's a tie game. Like it was crazy. And I mean, some of the shots, like the ones you mentioned from Hawkins, were you know, less than ideal. But there were certain plays, like there was one where Shannon breaks down two defenders, gets a good look, and all of a sudden there's Klingon to block it. Where I was really like, when he shot the ball, I was like, that's a pretty good look. It's a floater, it seems to be there, and then Klingon just knocks it out there. And we'll get to this more so, and maybe this is transitioning into the Purdue game, but Klingon and Edey have been absolutely dominant. And I know Nick was a bit early into the curve of switching on this, but I have switched my opinion on Edey immensely. So it's well, not immense. I guess I was never really that much of a hater of Edey, um, but I very much have become tired of the discourse around both Klingon and Edey. That is the he's just tall discourse. And I think it's something that really needs to change. I was looking at a stat today where it took some player value metric. I forget what it was. It might have been box plus minus. I think it was more advanced than that. And it was taking, first, it was like every 7'2" plus guy, but then they switched it to 7 feet, or 7 footers, sorry, and how valuable they were and how much of an impact they had on the game. And it was like the okay average range, some of the below average, like the height really isn't doing anything. Average range, you get into freshman year Edey. Then you go to above average and you get into sophomore year Edey. You get into this really good category, which has Edey, it has Chet Holmgren, it has Matt Harms from Purdue a couple years ago. Um, and then you just jump out, and that's Zach Edey this year. So, like Zach Edey last year, player of the year, and he was in that very good, tier one category of these 7 foot plus guys. And then you jump out to what he is this year, which is truly amazing. And I say that to say that the guy who's number two and the only guy who's close to it is Donovan Klingon. So I think it would be a very exciting matchup if we got to see the two play against each other. Obviously, that isn't what I'm going to be rooting for. I'm going to be rooting for DJ Burns and the Wolfpack, but I just think it's really impressive what these guys have done. And obviously, basketball discourse has gotten to a place where a lot of it's just bad faith sports arguments, which some of them are very fun to make, like the we done with the '90s trend and all that. But it's really impressive what they're doing.
Yeah, I have to say, if we're transitioning to the Purdue region, I think that's fine. We touched on how good UConn is enough. Um, yeah, in my opinion, the haters of Edey really, if like their complaint at its core is not anything about him just being good because he's tall or he has no skill. It's just the fact that he's good. Um, and I say that because if you think about like other really tall players in like basketball history, they're all like some of the most loved guys. But the difference is that they're not as good. Like the one that jumps out to me the most is Taco Fall. In I remember I was loved him in college at UCF. I was rooting for them desperately to beat Duke in that tight game. That was a good game. Uh, everyone loved him. Everyone loved him even when he went to the pros. Uh, Boban is another example. Didn't play college ball, but he's like 7'5". Everyone loves Boban. And the difference is that those guys are not good at basketball, so no one has a reason to hate them. Whereas Edey has been the most dominant player in college basketball for 2 years. Um, I mean, it's just the fact. Like the truth is, in college, like it's run by the big man. If you look at the 4 teams in the finals, Bama is just a high-powered offense, but then UConn's run by Klingon, NC State's run by DJ Burns, Purdue is run by Zach Edey. Um, that's just how it is in college. Like they don't like him because he's good. It happens to every at every level of the sport. It's true, but they just kind of use his height as a reason to hate him more. But yeah, he's obviously amazing. 40 piece against Tennessee. Um, if we can start there, that game. I mean, I'm skipping the Elite Eight games. I guess I'm sorry, but if we want to, the Purdue Tennessee game, I thought was so good. Connect was so good in that first half, dude. He was like started like 5 for 6 from three. Was just absolute cash. As soon as it was out of his hand, you knew it was in. I think he got close to 40. Edey had 40. That game was amazing. And I'll give props to Edey. There was a point in the second half where he scored like 14 straight points for Purdue, and that sealed the game for them. Um, like if you watched, I was watching that game, and Edey was making some pretty like okay passes when he was getting doubled or whatever in the post, and Purdue could not was not hitting their threes. They started like 2 for 15 from three, I think, and they still won. I thought that was really impressive because we saw like against Gonzaga, against Utah State, those 2 games especially. Once their 3 point shooting got hot, it was game over. If Purdue's like 3 point shooters are hitting their shots, that's why they're a 1 seed. They just blow the team out of the water because they cannot be stopped. But they were a little cold. Tennessee took a lead. Purdue came back and won, and it was amazing. Yeah, that's my take. I think Tennessee maybe could have won if some other guys could have contributed on offense. That was a problem. Ziegler really, if he had developed an offensive game, that would have made them a true threat to win it all. Even, but since Connect was really they live by the Connect, die by the Connect. That was their issue.
Yeah, I think anytime you get to see um, top level college basketball players play in the tournament, it's a very good sight to see. And in this case, you had in my opinion, first and second best players in college basketball facing off against each other with two, very different styles of game. Obviously, Connect's tall, but he's not Edey tall, and he doesn't play the same position. And he gets a lot of his points at the 3 point line, whereas Edey gets a lot at the paint. Um, I thought it was a really good game. I think you touched on it pretty well, though. The holes for Tennessee was just they couldn't get a second guy going. And Edey is that good. As I talked about previously, the line between Edey and everybody else is pretty big. And the line between Edey this year, who's going to win Player of the Year, and Edey last year, who won Player of the Year, is pretty big. And I think touching on more of the Edey hate, part of it's probably also just because he's not going to be a NBA star or anything like that. You put him in a drop coverage in the PNR, and you can't live with that whatsoever if you're a coach and can't space the floor. That's a big thing now, and there's guys who will be able to guard him in the post. All that probably factors into it, but I think it's okay to look at a guy and say that guy is one of the greatest to play college basketball in terms of his, talent and what he's done, um, even if they're not an NBA level guy. That's honestly where we get a lot of our legends, as we'll get into later with our draft, is from guys who were unexpected. You knew had no career past the tournament that year likely, and they really went on a run. So um, I very much enjoyed the game. Battle of heavyweights with Connect and Edey, but Tennessee just came up short with some of the other guys.
Yeah. We don't really have to touch on their Elite Eight games much, but Purdue against Gonzaga. Purdue, as I said, once the 3-point shooting got hot, it was game over. And then the Creighton game, Shireman had an absolute legacy game. He absolutely balled out. But I think Kalkbrenner did not play well. And that's probably why they lost. All year, Creighton had those, they had three guys averaging 15 a game, only team in the country. But when it came down to it, only Shireman really showed up. That was their issue. Tennessee's defense, top five in the country for a reason. Do you have anything you want to add on those games? Do you want to move up to the last region?
No, I think you covered it. Shireman, great game. For Purdue and Gonzaga, it was kind of what you said earlier, where once Purdue got the shooting rolling, it was game over, and they did. And that's another big difference I think between the team this year and the team last year is they are able to space the floor outside of Edey pretty well. Whereas I feel they weren't able to do that as much last year. So overall, great region. I think in general, if you think about some of the games that happened, think about Oregon, Creighton, obviously Tennessee, Purdue as the end of it, and some of the other ones you had in between, even blowouts like Purdue, Utah State, and Utah State versus TCU. I thought were still good games, but anyway, we
Kansas
can
Stanford was a good game.
exactly that's the one I was forgetting. I knew there
Both,
was one of them.
yeah.
Buckyball.
If we move on, I would first actually like to formally apologize to University of Houston. I was actually pretty low on them this year. Most of my brackets, I had them losing to Duke, which happened in Sweet 16. But my point here is, I think they're sitting in the Final Four right now if Shed doesn't get hurt. They played Duke to a tie without their best player, who's also easily top 10 in the country, maybe a top 5 player in the country. Um, he's like maybe the best defender in the whole country. He's like top two. Shout out UVA. Um, but no, like they played Duke, who's a great team, to a tie without their best player. I think they definitely win that game. I think with Shed. So I feel for them. I feel for him because I think he's a senior too. But they looked good. Um, it's a shame. I will say though, on the Duke end of things, as most people are, I'm a Duke hater. I don't like Duke, but Jared McCain makes me have some happiness in Duke, which is something I've never really had at all in my life before. Jared McCain and Zion are like the two Duke players that I truly enjoy watching, and Jeremy Roach for a little homer pick. But McCain, man, he's good. I think he'll be a good NBA pick, and as a Sixers fan, I would have loved to get him, but unfortunately, since he played so good in the tournament, his stock has been skyrocketing. A few weeks ago, the mocks had him in the late teens, like early 20s, which is Sixer range, as I said. But now, latest Bleacher Report mock draft I said I was looking at, he's 11. So he's played his way literally into a lottery pick. Good for him. Whatever team's gonna get him, he'll be great. But yeah, so on that end, got a feel for Houston because I think they're sitting in the Final Four. But Duke played good too. And then, yeah, what do you got to say about that?
Yeah, I do feel for Houston. Houston's one of those teams that I found that after watching them play more, once my picks were submitted, in all honesty, even knowing the results, I probably would have picked them to go further than I initially did. So, like you said, I did have them losing to Duke, and it did happen. But when I look back at this team, I think that's a good team that I would think if they would do this again with Shed healthy, they'd perform quite well. And the difference here was, in the A&M game, they had Emmanuel Sharp, who played quite well for them as well. Um, and in this game, they just didn't really have that other guy to replace some of the production you were missing from Shed. And I mean, Cryer tried his best, but I just really don't think you had the offensive firepower in this specific game for what was, like you said, a very good team. What was a very good defensive game. I mean, people complained about at the start when they saw a defensive game in UVA Colorado State, but this one was truly a defensive masterclass on both ends of the court, I felt. And a well-earned victory for Duke. They fought hard in this one, and obviously, I think the game that is really well, McCain's been good. Um, he was great against JMU, and then he was decent this game. He wasn't bad by any stretch, but then it was in the NC State game where he really shined. I mean, he was fantastic in this game. And like you said, some of the numbers he's put up recently have really upped his draft stock. And I really just, he's one of those guys that you see him and you're just like, that's a dude. Like he just is to me. And, mock drafts had him coming to my Knicks. That's likely not going to happen because we have two picks that are mid to late probably this year. But it has been a really outstanding performance from him. And he in the tournament was really the guy that got them going on the offensive end throughout the entire thing. I mean, Roach had his moments, Filipowski had his moments, but it was really him that was making it happen and transitioning into the NC State game. I really had to feel for him as he was laying it all out there, and then at the end when he fouled, when the rest of the team had pretty much given up and he was chasing the loose ball and everything, you could really tell that he wanted to be out there like as badly as he possibly could, and he wanted to win that game as badly as he possibly could, and he didn't want to move on yet. But at the end of the day, I think he'll be a great player. I think Duke, they just got caught in the DJ Burns show twice in the two tournaments they played in. I mean, in the ACC tournament, he was dominant against them, and in this game, he was dominant against them. And DJ Burns is a good basketball player past just being big. And going to your point earlier, DJ Burns is a big guy, not tall, but big, who everybody loves. So that goes to the Edey point. But I really just think his ability to work in the mid range, his ability to pass out of doubles and pass in general, and his ability to then get into that post and use his body was really effective. And DJ Horn had a good game as well, but really, I just thought Burns was pretty dominant in this one.
Yeah. I'm gonna start with the Marquette game just real quick to shout out Tyler Kolek because in the first half he literally scored all of Marquette's points. The rest of the team sucked. Um, but NC State just came out roaring hot. DJ Burns had 4 points, I think, but he had like 7 assists, and that's what I really like about DJ. He's a really good passer for a big man. When the double comes, he's usually finding the open man. And then also shout out Mohamed Diarra because without
Yep.
him, I think this team would be so cooked. DJ is not a great rebounder for his size, but Diarra is an amazing rebounder. First half, he had 10 boards against Marquette. So props to him. He keeps the team together, in my opinion. Moving on to the Duke game, uh, I was disappointed in Filipowski because I thought he could exploit some matchups on NC State. And I don't think he played that well. McCain just literally put the team on his back as hard as he could, but they could not pull it out. And it was the DJ Burns show. 29 points or whatever he had, absolute masterpiece. Uh, he has a lot of finesse for a big man too. He's something to watch. He's something special. Uh, yeah, it was. I mean, NC State just they played better to be honest. They had more guys involved. They had more guys getting shots.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean to your point about Diarra, he is probably one of the more unsung heroes for this team. Obviously, a lot of the attention goes to Burns as it should, and goes to DJ Horn as well. But Diarra can not only get rebounds, but he's a active and willing shooter. And I don't think his percentage is incredibly high, but it's enough where you have to guard it. And he him being able to do that, given his size and Burns' size, for most teams that could cause a lot of issues having both of them in there where he is just they're packing the paint on those two and you can't really get anything going in there. But Burns can space the floor in the way of his mid ranges and his ability to pass the ball. And Diarra can space the floor in his ability and willingness to be a shooter. And I think that just becomes really helpful, especially when you got add a guy in like Middlebrooks as that third big man who can come in there, get some of those grunge energy minutes done for you, and pick up some fouls before he gets out of there too. Where I don't know, I think regardless of how the rest of this goes for NC State, this has just been an incredible run by them, and being able to see at least the start of it in person was really something that was special to see.
Yep. And I will say, as much fun as it's been, it pains me as a UVA fan because every time NC State wins, they love to bring up how it could have been ended just by the stupid free throw by McNeely. It's true, but it's just annoying to hear every time as a UVA. Yeah, guess we can move on to some Final Four outlooks. As fun as the NC State train has been, um, Edey is the first guy DJ Burns will play that is the same weight as him. ESPN has Edey listed heavier, but I'd like to believe that they're around the same weight. Uh, but yeah, so I don't. That's going to be a really interesting matchup. Those two post players against each other. I have no idea what's going to happen between them. It should be very interesting though. Uh, I will say that I feel like DJ Burns doesn't really foul as much as like a typical center does. Maybe just because I don't know, he's not a good defender in general. But I feel like that could either play really good or really bad for them. I feel like Edey could feast on him because he literally has 7 inches on him, or whatever it is. So it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Then on the perimeter, I think Purdue kind of matches up like really well against NC State. I think Purdue might blow them out in this game. Kind of like not obviously a great comparison, but St. Peter's when they made it to the Elite Eight got blown out by UNC in that game. I think at one point the Magic ends and it kind of ends bad. I just think the Purdue's like four. He's kind of a big man too. He's like 6'9". And that matches up really well with Diarra in terms of like rebounding. Uh, and then, you know, the guy that can beat Purdue is like a connect because Purdue's guards are really short. So like a tall guard that can literally just shoot over them can destroy them, like connected. But out of NC State's guards, it's like the little white guy O'Connell, DJ Horn. It's a kind of some small shifty guards, but I think plays into Purdue's game pretty well. So I would have Purdue winning this one pretty comfortably, I would say.
Yeah, it's not often that you get a real David and Goliath matchup in the Final Four like this. I really think it would be one of the more shocking upsets, even with the way that the NC State Wolfpack are flowing right now. If NC State was able to beat Purdue, I think the most likely outcomes, like Nick said, a comfortable win for Purdue. In all honesty, a problem for Burns is, Edie, he doesn't foul a lot as a result of shorter guys getting by him and him just giving up the layup. And Burns isn't going to be able to use his speed or anything to get by him. And that mid range gets over taller players, or the like hook shot he does, or gets over shorter players rather, or players at his height. It isn't really getting over Edey. I'd be quite surprised if it did. This game needs to be won by DJ Horn and Jaden Taylor, in my eyes. Jaden Taylor, obviously sixth man, but him and Horn have had some games this year. And Horn's had Horn went through a stretch in the ACC where he was averaging like 25 or something. He was going crazy, and he got hurt. Obviously, came back in the ACC tournament, helped them fulfill their goal of winning that. But this is really going to need to be on the shoulders of these guards. But like I said, the guards for Purdue are better than they were last year. They are. And the other thing about this game is a lot of what's happening with NC State is NC State's the hungrier dog at the battle. And in this game, I just don't know that that's true at this point. I think Purdue, coming off the loss, is just as hungry as anybody, and arguably might be more hungry than NC State is, because all this for NC State is kind of icing on the cake, especially after winning the region. They're playing with nothing to lose, and it feels like Purdue's playing with everything to lose, even with their loss last year. And that's been a question for years, but in this case, I think the everything to lose will come to the fight a little bit more prepared than some of these other teams did against NC State, and be able to shut them down. Although I really hope they prove me wrong. I really think it would be special to see NC State. But honestly, with where I've gotten on both guys, it's kind of win-win for me, because I think love an underdog story, but I also love the whole 16 to champion story, and I think Edey deserves that type of ending. So I wouldn't be incredibly mad at that either. But moving on to the other game, which probably won't be as hyped, but it'll be a good one as well. It'll probably be closer, honestly, if the game goes how I think it's going to go in the Purdue NC State game, but maybe not given UConn's ability to go on runs. I think actually, more I think about this, I think UConn will probably win handedly. I think we might get two or handily two blowouts in Final Four games potentially, because I think the problem for Bama is sometimes what keeps other teams in the game is Bama playing at that pace and not being able to go and get the shots in, causing quick runs by the other team. And UConn is incredibly disciplined. They're not going to speed the game up for Bama. They're just not. So Bama can play their fast offense. UConn is going to play their set offense, running 5 different off-ball screens to get a wide open shot. They're going to continue to do that. And I think Hurley's too good a coach. I think they still have too much talent. And I just think they're just too disciplined to the point that Bama would have to come out and shoot even better than they have been in order to really make this one for them and have a chance to really win it. And Sears would have to have an incredible game, I think, for them. Because I'm not sure how much Nelson is really going to be able to do or anybody else. I think there's two teams who have looked the best all year, and everyone kind of overlooked it. But now we've gotten to this point where those two teams are playing like they're the best two teams in college basketball, and they're headed on this path where they're going to face off against each other in what I think will be a fantastic game. So I honestly think I could see no wrong with how these games could end up in the Final Four. I'm not the biggest fan of Bama, so I guess they're the only team that could really throw a wedge in it. But if you get UConn NC State, I'm happy. If you get UConn Purdue, I'm happy. If you get NC State Bama, I mean, having the two underdogs, I'd be happy. So, I think there's all good outcomes here.
To your point, the three of the 4 1 seeds were pretty much locked up like a month before March Madness even started because those 3 teams were truly just on a way another level, dominating, and all 3 of them would be in the Final Four, in my opinion, if Shed stayed healthy. But yeah, the 2 best teams in the country in the Final Four. I think the problem for Bama is that they are very much of the same mold as Illinois. They are a high octane offense led by one of the best guards in the country, and their defense is not top 100. Um, and as we saw, that is not a good formula for beating UConn. Especially UConn, they said it during the Illinois game. They have like one of the best defenses against 3 pointers in the country, like top 15 in like opponent 3 point field goal percentage. Uh, and Bama really relies on the three. Um, they take so many threes a game. So, it's not. I mean, I thought Illinois was going to play UConn to a close battle, and then they get absolutely mauled. So I don't really know what to say anymore. UConn, they're just so good. They have so many good players like Castle, Newton, playing in. The
Caravan.
team is just so amazing. Um, so I mean, it's hard not to say UConn is not going to like blow them out of the water. Like they're they played a 3 seed. They're favored by 9 points. They win by 30. They're playing a 4 seed. They're in the Final Four. They're favored by like 12 points. It's for a reason. Um, I have to go with the 2 1 seeds. Might seem boring, but March Madness, a 1 seed usually wins. These 2 teams look so amazing. It's hard to pick against them. And in terms of who I'm rooting for, I can't lie. I am. I'm going. Whoever wins the right side of the bracket for NC State, I'm going to be rooting hard for them in the Natty. Um, similar to you, I'm not a huge Bama fan. Uh, and then UConn, I have no poor feelings towards them. It's just I don't want to see a back-to-back champion, to be honest with you. Um, I think the storylines on Purdue and NC State are so much better. As a UVA fan, I do understand the 16-1, the turnaround, how good that feels. And then in NC State, it's an 11 seed. They have DJ Burns. Never seen I don't think an 11 seed's ever made the championship game before. So yeah, for me, I'll be heavy rooting for either the Boilermakers or the Wolfpack in the championship game.
Yeah, I know 11's never won it. I don't know about making it there. I don't think they have, but I would need to get that fact checked. But honestly, I don't know. I'll be rooting for NC State above all else, likely. But I am not a guy who is completely against chalky matchups because I think a lot of the times it gives us in the biggest moments the best teams. So a UConn Purdue final would not upset me in the slightest. I don't know. You hear it with some of my football stuff how I pick the Chiefs and I like seeing, like Chiefs Eagles last year, Chiefs 49ers this year. I just think seeing the best play the best for to win the championship is exciting stuff. And I think, as I previously said, Purdue and UConn are the two best teams. So I think that would probably give us the best game uh, when you combine storyline and everything, because I think 16-1 may outweigh the NC State story, which I'm not sure can get much better at this point. So those will be our thoughts on this, I believe, unless you have anything to add.
I guess on your thing on the good game, I feel like in the championship game, I feel like the only like bad game technically would be NC State UConn because I think that's the kind of game where UConn would literally just crush their hopes and dreams and win. Like last year, boring finals game by blowout. I think every other finals matchup has the potential to be very good in my opinion. So, I'm just praying for some good games. Whatever happens, happens. But yeah, we can move on to the other March Madness section.
Okay, so in this one, we will be doing the March Madness Legends Draft. To preface this, we aren't talking about the best players to ever play in March Madness. Um, well, it's encompassed in it because you have to have a good performance to become a legend in March Madness. But like, I think we've agreed to not pick Christian Leitner because you know he is kind of a March Madness legend. He does have that legacy about him, but also we both hate Duke, and so I think it honors his legacy more if we don't pick him. It matches the 30 for 30 on him. So that's where we're at with that. Um, but anyway, Nick, I don't know if you want the first pick or not, but we'll see. I don't really think it matters. I think there's enough legends to go about it either way we want. So which pick would you like to have?
I'll take the second pick.
I kind of thought you'd say that. Um, Also, how
I
many
mean,
are
I have
drafting?
a very
Five?
good. We can do five. I have a very good option in mind. I would say for first overall. If you want me to take it, I'll take it. If you prefer second, I'm
Hmm.
happy to rip away this guy, number one overall that I have in mind.
Nah, nah. I'll go. I'll go with it. I'll take
Want to do
it.
the screen share for the thing, the sheet, or no?
Sure, that's fine. I just have to. I can. Actually, I'll give you my. I'll screen share, and you'll be able to see my list of guys as well. So that's fine with me. I jotted down some names, so maybe I'll give you one that you hadn't thought of at this point. The only thing I worry
Try to
about with
snag some guys that aren't on the list.
the screen share is that no, not this one. Oh wait, here we go. I got it. Is that my face will cut out again, but I guess it's a better now. All right, you can see that. You can see that. Good. And actually, I don't even think you can see my screen. So like the one that has the pics with it. So with the first overall pick, I will be taking a guy who combines a lot of things, such as the legend status, the storyline, and talent. And I'm going to take Frank Kaminsky 101 because I think
Like the tank.
he had Frank the Tank. He had a killer nickname. He took on that Kentucky team and took them down when no one thought they would. And I just think he, like I said, incredibly dominant player, incredibly good storyline, beating that Kentucky team. That was unbelievable. And might have been undefeated that year. I don't know. Could be wrong on that. Um, and he had that aura about him, for lack of a better word. But anyway, Nick, I'll let you go ahead with your 102 here.
Uh, I will be taking Jimmer Fredette. Uh,
It's a good pick.
your screen went all white, by the way. I can't see the spreadsheet.
Oh
But
man. Oh, here we go. I fixed it.
now it's back. Jimmer, just an absolute legend. I think he embodies the March Madness legend like theme because he was just a dog, couldn't miss, on fire, and he's kind of similar to the guy that I'm going to take with my second overall pick. This might be a little high, but I remember him very specifically. His run was insane, could not miss at all. Both Jimmer and this guy not known for the NBA, which is also I think kind of plays into that legends thing where it's like these aren't like the big name guys really, but they make a name for themselves in March Madness. I will be taking Carson Edwards.
Oh, it's a good one. It's a it's a very good one. He did it to your team too, although I guess you got the last laugh because you guys won.
Dude,
But
he was insane. Like under 6 footer, just absolutely insane. He was fun to watch, even against UVA.
yeah, I'm gonna take a guy who is very uh, near and dear to my heart for crushing my hopes and dreams. I don't exactly remember where I was, but I believe this game made me cry when Trey Burke put the dagger in Kansas and beat them to move on to the Final Four, I believe. So I don't know. He has some of that popularity in terms of the legacy that he left, but this one is one that's like really, I remember his run very well. So I have him, and then hmm, let's see. I'm gonna go with another guy who's dominant in the championship game, another guy who beat Kansas, and I'm going to take Anthony Davis. He's a guy who did have a good NBA career, but he also had what I forget how many blocks in the championship game, but he blocked absolutely everything that came his way and put on a really stellar performance in that championship that just made him stick out to me. And obviously, both Kansas ended up on the wrong side of both of them, which was the team I liked to root for growing up. So, again, near and dear to my heart, or I guess the opposite.
Think here. Hmm. See, there are some Cinderella runs, but those teams just didn't have like one guy that stood out to me. That I was thinking like Loyola Chicago, Florida Gulf Coast. Two good examples. There wasn't like one guy, but I think a good pick here would be Shabazz Napier of the Yukon Huskies. I would have no idea who this guy was if they didn't win it all as a 7 seed, I believe. Maybe 7 seed, maybe 8 seed, I don't know.
It was
In
8, I
2014.
think. I think they were 8 seed.
But yeah,
I'm not sure.
absolutely insane run. Lowest seed ever to win, I believe. Uh,
Yep.
and then another guy, this guy, uh, he he's like a Jared. He's similar to Jared, not similar to Jared McCain, but similar in the sense that he really buffed that draft stock probably with his March Madness performance. Went top 10 in his draft. One of the greatest NBA players of all time,
Uh oh.
Chef Stephen Curry.
Okay. That that was one I probably potentially should have taken earlier, but it's a good pick. It's a very good pick. Wow, we could really do a lot of rounds for this. I'm not gonna lie, but okay. I think I will pick up a player that did have that type of moment for. Oh, I have three players I really want to get for two spots. This is tough. This is
You
very
wanna you
tough.
wanna increase to a 6 round draft?
Sure, we'll increase to a 6 round draft. Um, the question is, which guy do I think I should take first? You know, I am going to take the guy that had a moment in March Madness that you'll always point to and be like, that was one of the best moments in the history of the sport, even though the team didn't go on an incredibly far run. And I'm going to take RJ Hunter. The shot where he hits the three and his dad falls off the stool is probably one of the most memorable moments in college basketball. So I really like him. And then the other guy I'm going to take, I'm going to be a homer and do it. I'm going to take Carmelo. Carmelo had arguably the greatest freshman year of anybody in the history of college basketball, and he led that Syracuse team to a national championship um, in what ended up being Boeheim's only national championship in 50 years. But even though it happened a year before I was born, I like going back and watching some of the highlights, especially now that I go to Syracuse. And he truly is one of the greatest one and done college basketball players ever, I would say.
Yeah, certainly is. Uh, Next guy, uh, not only in March Madness but in his tournament, the Big East tournament, iconic shot, one of the most iconic shots in history. Cardiac Kemba Walker. Uh,
Yep.
Gotta take him. And then my ball knowledge is a little lacking here, but eh, the homer in me wants to go Kyle Guy, but I kind of feel like he doesn't have the legend status that some of the other guys have.
Part
Maybe
of
I'll
it's he played
pass
for
on him for
UVA. I
now.
think that hurt him.
Yeah, we're just too elite. But hmm. This is actually a really sneaky one. This is a really sneaky one, but I just thought of it. I really like it. Give me Johnny Juzang. The
Mm.
guy absolutely balled out in that 10 seed run or 11 seed run to the Final Four. Completely forgot about him until right now, dude. But shout out Johnny Juzang.
See, that was the next place I was going because I think he's somehow one of the most unforgettable and forgettable runs, like at the same time, because he was
Yeah,
really
exactly.
balling like that. But maybe COVID, maybe no fans has something to do with it, so you don't get the clips of him hitting a shot and the crowd going wild. But I remember, I think you were with me on this one when we were on our way to the beach, and that UCLA Michigan or was that UCLA Gonzaga? I forget which one it was, but it
I
was
think it was against Bama when we
Bama.
went to
Bama,
OT.
that's who it was, not Gonzaga. But he was outstanding, and that team as a whole was very good. But no, that's a very good one. Instead, I'll pivot and I will go with a guy that I just think, he's just a public figure at this point, and I really think he's a guy that people are going to remember for a long time. So I think you know where I'm going with this. I'm going to take DJ Burns with my final. Oh, DJ Burns with my final pick. Because
You know what's funny? I totally thought you were going Golke there because he was on Barstool like 2 days after he got eliminated from the tournament. But yeah, I mean DJ Burns is a great one too, obviously.
see, maybe I would go Golke, but first I'm more personally attached to Burns, and second, I think being a double-digit seed to make the Final Four and having him as the centerpiece of it all kind of gets him a little bit further for me. Um, but then, yeah, there's definitely the personal connection. I have now watched what, like 13 NC State games at this point because they're five in the ACC tournament. They're two against Syracuse previous, and they're ones in March Madness. So it's been quite a ride, and I think given his size, given his personality, which comes, it comes out on the court, and you can tell that he's just a very likable guy. And given the run that this team went on, I think he'll be remembered for years to come. And I think that NC State will forever know the name DJ Burns.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think DJ Burns will definitely be more memorable than Golke. Um, For Golke, honestly, the issue was just that they ran into DJ Burns in the second round. I think that makes his legacy a little worse. And also that the fact that the run was only, 1.5, 2 games. Uh, Got to go a little further in the tournament to really make a name for cement like your legacy, I guess. But yeah, DJ Burns gonna be remembered for ever at NC State at least. And yeah,
Yeah. And then I know we left off some names. Like obviously there's Gordon Hayward. There's a sort of underrated Buddy Hield who led his team to the Final Four.
I was thinking about
Um,
Buddy.
and some guys like that, Adam Morrison, that we left off. But it is truly just it's a special club to be a part of to become a memorable name like this in March Madness. And I look forward to in the future having some more names added to this list.
Villanova legend Ryan Archidiakono to really be
It's
honest with you.
true. Or Jenkins.
No,
Or I mean,
yeah, Jenkins also is a good one.
Brunson wasn't
The
legend
crazy part
enough, but he
is,
was
I
good
think
enough.
Jenkins hit like probably the greatest shot in college basketball history, and I think like most people don't remember his name, because he wasn't like the guy on at all. He was like one of the worst starters on the Nova team, I think, more or less, or at least he definitely wasn't the best on the team. But yeah, he's kind of that's my point. But obviously, I said greatest shot in college basketball history. Marcus Page in the same game,
Marcus Page, the
also
shot
one of the
right
greatest
before the
shots.
shot.
Yeah, that would be remembered. He would be maybe on this list if it weren't for the Jenkins shot.
Marcus Page got to be one of the unluckiest college basketball players of all time with that one. Making that shot with everything that happened, and then they go down the court and erase it all. And now, people remember the name Chris Jenkins more than they remember the name Marcus Page, and Marcus Page was the better player. So it's funny how it works. It's really it's interesting. You got to have your moments. You got to win the big games, and or I mean, it's a weird thing, and I won't go too much of a tangent for this one. But if you're a lower seed, your big game's the first one. That's the game you got to win. If you're a higher seed, like a Marcus Page, in order to be a legend, that's the game you got to win the national championship. It's like he won more games than a lot of the guys on this list, but they're on this list and he isn't.
Yeah, man, it's all part of the beauty of March Madness.
Yep. All right. I'm going to stop sharing. I think that will probably wrap us up for this week. Next week, we'll have most of the playoff picture set, hopefully, in the NBA. So we'll probably move back into more of that. The national championship is this Monday. So obviously, we'll discuss the final four games and national championship. Maybe get into some baseball. Who knows? But anyway, guys, hope to see you next time.